What's going on, guys? So the first console I ever owned was the Nintendo, aka the NES. And yes, the one behind me is the first one I ever owned. Also, my favorite console of all time is the PlayStation 2. And yes, the one behind me is my original PlayStation 2. Now, both of these consoles still work, but I haven't played either in years. But why? Well, I prefer to emulate these consoles and many more. Okay, so the debate between using real video game hardware and emulation is actually a big topic among gamers. Now I'm going to get this out the way in case you don't know. I'm Team Emulation. Now, I will say, both approaches have their advantages and disadvantages, and the choice often comes down to personal preference, accessibility, and personal needs. Let's start with using real video game hardware. If you want an authentic gaming experience that will give you the exact look and feel of the original gameplay, for a lot of people, this brings a sense of nostalgia that emulation cannot fully replicate. Just having the experience of holding an original controller and the unique sounds and visuals produced by older hardware are important parts of the gaming experience for enthusiasts. Also, using the original hardware guarantees compatibility with the games designed for it. There are no concerns about graphical glitches, audio issues, or game-breaking bugs that sometimes occur in emulation. The performance is consistent and players can enjoy the games as they were meant to be played without the need for tweaking or troubleshooting. If you are a collector, then owning real hardware and games is often valuable. See, physical cartridges, discs, and consoles can become prized possessions. If they are rare or limited edition items, then they are worth even more. The market for vintage gaming hardware and software is robust, with some items approaching big in value over time. That's also a bad thing for anyone out there that's trying to collect old retro consoles and games, because the prices can be really expensive when shopping online for them or at a retro gaming store. Another bad thing about real hardware that you are playing with is that it will break, because nothing lasts forever. And finding someone to repair an old console will be difficult, and in most cases, the repair can't be made anyways, because they simply don't make parts for the console anymore. But one good thing I noticed is that hybrid consoles are being released that combine aspects of real hardware and emulation. They have technology to mimic the original hardware at low level, offering the accuracy of real hardware with the convenience of modern technology. But when it comes to emulation, this is not a problem, because everything from your emulators to ROMs, which are your games, can be backed up on multiple drives. Even if an emulator gets removed from the internet altogether, such as the Switch emulator Yuzu, as long as you had it downloaded somewhere, you will always have it. And the same goes for your collection of game ROMs. Therefore, this easy accessibility is crucial for preserving video game history year after year. While real hardware continues decaying, emulation will also make it possible for newer generations to experience classic games that might otherwise be lost to time. And there are a lot of benefits to emulating a game over real hardware, such as having save states, which allow players to save and resume their game at any point. You can make a game that has a 4:3 aspect ratio have a 16:9 aspect ratio so that it fills out a widescreen TV or monitor. Or make a game that was designed to run at 480p or 720p run at 1080p, 4K, or even 8K, making the game look much better and cleaner. And if you want to use an Xbox, PlayStation 5, or Nintendo Switch controller with an emulator, then well, you can do that, because it will support them. You also can mod retro games through emulation that can add content or even fix old bugs that were in the game. Now, as great as I think emulation is, I will say, achieving perfect accuracy and replicating original hardware behavior is challenging. And some games rely on hardware quirks and timing that can be difficult to replicate in software. meaning certain games may not run as intended, with graphical or audio discrepancies that can distract from the experience. Also, not everyone wants to bother with the setup process of an emulator, and some people don't even know where to start. But luckily, people like me here on YouTube have guides helping you get those emulators set up on your PCs or Macs. One of the most talked about challenges with emulation is the legal side. While emulation itself is legal, the use of ROMs often fall in the gray area. See, downloading ROMs of games you do not own is illegal in many regions, and even creating backups of games that you do own can sometimes be legally questionable. And sometimes this can draw people away from emulation because they fear what could happen to them. And not to mention, many game developers and publishers are protective of their content and will try to take down and sue sites that have ROMs of their games. But that's still crazy because Nintendo, Sony, and Sega have released official emulation-based products such as the NES Classic and the PlayStation Classic. These products provide legal, high-quality access to classic games. But at the end of the day, who says these companies didn't download some of the ROMs from the ROM sites, then put them on these mini retro consoles? I mean, I'm just saying. Now, clearly, I prefer emulation, and while emulation plays a critical role in preserving gaming history, the preservation of original hardware is equally important. As technology progresses, there is a risk that the knowledge and ability to maintain and repair vintage hardware will be lost. So balancing the preservation of physical artifacts with digital emulation is essential to ensure that gaming heritage is not forgotten. The choice between real video game hardware and emulation depends on the aspects of the gaming experience one values most. For those who want the real nostalgia and collectability, then for them, real hardware is irreplaceable. But for those who seek convenience and enhanced features and not breaking the bank, emulation offers a lot of advantages. But regardless of what side you are on, maybe you are for both, I think we all can agree we want a way to save the past and share it with the future. I'm Shandell, and thanks for watching.
Games, and again, our goal is to have the best game machine in the world. Now, this is another game machine. It's the most popular game machine in the world. Wouldn't it be great if we could play some of those titles too? Well, at Macworld today, Connectix is introducing the Virtual Game Station. It is software. It is software that they're going to sell for $49 that turns your Mac into a Sony PlayStation. It plays a few hundred. It plays a few hundred of the Sony PlayStation games today.